Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 19, where we'll be exploring blood. Yeah, I can't do that. We're not doing that. Anyways, we are indeed going to be exploring some blood and the characteristics of it and pulling it apart and trying to see exactly what makes blood blood. So the easiest thing would probably do is to go ahead and just take a look-see at a practice that most medical labs do is go ahead and throw some of that blood into a tube and spin it in a centrifuge to see how and what part and separate out the different parts of the blood. You'll see that the majority of the time red blood is the red blood cells that we know and love and we're familiar with and think of and associate with blood is only about 45% of your blood, while the rest of it is blood plasma as well as a buffy coat that is nice and white. Blood plasma is a lot of the water soluble type of things, such as proteins, solutes, and while the buffy coat itself, you'll notice is nice and white, which has a lot of the white blood cells and platelets. Perhaps that's why they call white blood cells white. Now, if we were to go ahead and make a little diagram of it, we would see first off the body weight is off to the left with 8% of your body weight pertaining to the whole blood with the 92% all pertaining to the other stuff. If we were to divide whole blood further, we would see that 55% of it pertains to the blood plasma, while formed elements is about 45% of the volume of blood. Let's go ahead and focus a little bit more on the blood plasma and its contents first. You'll see that it is 91.5% water, 7% protein, and 1.5% other solutes. Now, proteins that are composed here mostly are the albumins, globulins, and fibrinogen. Albumins mostly and primarily hanging out with the transport of nutrients and other things and water. Globulins doing a lot of different types of work, such as protection, fibrinogen doing a clotting type of thing, as well as other proteins such as protein hormones and intrinsic factors and other things that we'll talk about later. The other solutes that should be somewhat familiar is like the electrolytes, which has a lot to do with maintaining your balance, getting the muscles to work appropriately, nerves, etc. You also have to get nutrients moving around through your blood or through your body, and that's done through your blood, as well as the gases in and out, oxygen in, CO2 out, nitrogen circulating around as well. You also have the regulatory substances, such as maybe some different types of hormones, such as the steroid hormones, and waste products, such as hormones you no longer want, and it's been destabilized, or maybe you got some urea, maybe you got a little bit of bilirubin floating around in there, that what have you. So that's pretty much blood plasma. Now let's meander down here to the formed elements, which is again only 45% of the volume. And let's figure out as to why they've named it formed elements. First off, you're noticing you got your red blood cells. Everyone knows that nice little biconcave disc. You also got these guys right here, which are your white blood cells. Notice that these things seem to be or pertain to cells or have some type of lipid membrane. We also have these little guys right here, which are your clots. Now, clots, or those, I shouldn't say clots quite yet, because clots is more of the active form of the platelet. Platelet usually just floats around in its inactive form until it's called upon. You should have about 150 to 400,000 of those floating around, while per microliter, with red blood cells being about 4.8 to 5.4 million per microliter. White blood cells, on the other hand, is about 5,000 to 10,000, each of which are being subdivided further. The main take-home there is that those neutrophils are about 60 to 70% of the majority of those, or the majority of those white blood cells. These pictures here, I would be very familiar with. You got, this is what you would see if if we were in the lab right now, you would see a blood smear on the microscope, all these little red circles with the little faded white portion in the middle are your red blood cells. You'll also see a lot of the white blood cells that will have these different shapes and different stains and colors. And then you have these itty bitty things here, which are your platelets. So, what are some of the functions and properties of blood? Blood regulates a ton of stuff, or has a major role, I should say, in the homeostasis of a lot of things, such as your fluids. It's too salty, it's going to be measured. Blood content is going to be measured by your hypothalamus and say, hey, this is too salty. We need to fix this. Oh, we don't have enough water. Got to fix this. Ooh, we're too acidic. We got to fix this. It really is like every thermometer, every single thing, the little receptors that monitor the blood pH, your fluids, your body temp, water, and contents of cells. All those thermometers are being, like thermometers being stuck in mouths, is being stuck, or the thermometers of the body are being stuck into the blood to measure these different changes. And a lot of the time, it does have a regulatory portion. For instance, body temperature, if you get hot, guess where blood's going to go? It's going to go ahead and get up to the surface of your skin to try and hopefully get off some of that heat. That's why you get more red when you get hot. Now, it does do a lot of transportation as well. Because it's a fluidish, like colloid stuff, a connective tissue, a very loose connective tissue, a lot of things can get thrown into it. Oxygen is thrown into it, carbon dioxide, your nutrients such as sugars, amino acids, lipids, cholesterol. You also got your hormones, remember, that require that liquid or chemical transport. Well, that's how hormones are regulated and sent through. You also got that heat that gets dispersed. You also get those waste products. You have to get rid of that stuff. You don't want it around. And blood is more than willing to go ahead and act as your garbage service to get it out of there. Now, it also protects, and it protects in two different ways. One, it fights off you losing blood. If you lose a lot of blood, you got an uh-oh. You won't be able to transport, you won't be able to regulate a lot of things. You're going to get dizzy, you're going to pass out, and bad things are going to happen. Now, it also, because it contains those white blood cells, or a good amount of white blood cells, it does protect against infections. And we'll get more into that when we get into chapter 22. And just a tiny bit more about that as well later on in this chapter. So let's hit up these slides really quick. This is just a quick check. What do these do? Go ahead and pause the video, take a good gander. You get 3, 2, 1. These are more along the lines of your clotting factors. What do these do? I'm going to give you a second to pause the video and take a stab in the dark. Well, probably not a stab in the dark. I should say educated guess. My ramblings on, I believe, counts as the 3, 2, 1 countdown. I just did that again. Oh well. These are your protecting against bacteria, viruses, or outside foreign things that you don't want on your body. What about these guys? What do these do? 3, 2, 1. These transport your nutrients. These transport the needs, the things that you may need to get to the other parts of your body. So oxygen, carbon dioxide, waste products, sugars, sweets, hormones, you name it. This is the stuff that most likely transports it. All right. So here's a table that summarizes everything and anything underneath the sun about the components of your blood. Again, water being 91.5% of your blood content. You have the blood plasma proteins, which is your albumins, globulins, and fibrinogen. If you are donating plasma, they are after those proteins, especially for those that have an issue with trying to clot. That fibrinogen, or producing their own fibrinogen. or producing their own immunoglobulins and all that stuff. They're going to get that plasma for those reasons. You also got your nutrients, gases, enzymes, hormones, vitamins, and all that wonderfulness hanging out inside your blood plasma. I'm going to go ahead and at the end portion of this video, we're going to just hit this, and then I'm going to transition over to erythrocytes, aka your red blood cells. You will want to note here that all of this development or the creation of these cells happen in one place. And that is in your red bone marrow. Your red bone marrow. So these cells right here, they're pluripotent stem cells. Pluripotent meaning multiple, and they have the potential to go ahead and make into different potent types of things. If this pluripotent differentiates into the myeloid stem cells, they can be stimulated to create any number of these right here. The red blood cells, platelets, eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils, as well as the monocytes, aka the guys that turn into macrophages. They can also become your mast cells that causes or triggers the allergic reaction. The pluripotent cell, if it gets stimulated over into the lymphoid stem cells, will make your lymphocytes, your T, B, and natural killer cells. This thing, or the creation of these blood cells, not just the red blood cells, all of the blood cells, the white blood cells, the macrokaryocytes, which make into platelets, your macrophages, your white blood cells in general are all created, be it in a process called hemopoiesis, or another way of saying it is hematopoiesis. All of these numbers are regulated depending upon the situation of your body, but most of the time your red blood cells and your platelets have a normal number or a consistent number. Your lymphocytes have a consistent number unless they differentiate or deviate off because of some type of issue. With that, I believe we will go ahead and stop this video, and we'll carry on with into the red blood cells and what is going on there.